The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119. If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law. Thank you so much for listening to the Opperman Report. I want to welcome all our new listeners at WWPR 1490 AM in the Tampa Bay area. We're brand new down here. We're getting a nice warm welcome. We have great advertising opportunities for local sponsors, local businesses, but also international websites and international companies too on our other stations in California, Nevada, Utah, and on the internet worldwide. But down here in Tampa Bay, Florida, we have some great opportunities for you to come in and get very, very affordable advertising rates. Get a hold of me at oppermanreport@gmail.com and we'll cut you a good deal.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. You can get a hold of me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com if you need to get a hold of me for some PI work. If you like our show, check out our Patreon. We put up 8 hours of new content on Patreon each month. Plus, there's all the old member section shows are on there. And I also, just check it out because I put a lot of free content up there too as well. In the past week, I put up the whole report, the October 1st shooting in Las Vegas, the final police report, I put that up. And then I put up the criminal record of Lauren Boebert from Colorado there, not well known. She actually met her husband when he was exposing himself to a bunch of teenage girls. And love was in the air. The rest is romance history. And, of course, our Spreaker channel you can find at Spreaker.com and sign up for free, the Opperman Report. We've done many shows on there about the topic we're doing tonight, but not from this perspective. And we're talking about Paul is dead, PID, or Paul is swapped. Paul was swapped out. Maybe he wasn't dead. Maybe they just swapped him out and put a new Paul in. Today we have Andrew Arnett. You can find him at andrewarnett.me. That's his WordPress blog. Got a bunch of content up there. All kinds of stuff too about ghost hunting and stuff too, like paranormal research. But a whole bunch of shows too. He was on Coast to Coast talking about his Paul is dead theory and the connections to Aleister Crowley. You can also follow Mr. Arnett at Twitter at Andrew Arnett on Twitter. Mr. Arnett, are you there?
Hey, Ed. I'm here. I'm very excited to be here. thank you for inviting me on this wonderful show, and I'm very excited to talk to your audience, especially about this really weird, mysterious topic that we're about to discuss.
Tell us about yourself before we get into Paul is Dead. Who is Andrew Arnett?
Yeah, Ed. I'm a freelance photographer. I'm a freelance writer and cameraman and producer. What got me interested in this whole Beatles phenomenon is really my love for music. I started, my first career ambition was to become a musician, and in fact I moved from New York City after college. I went to Seattle in the 90s. I was in various garage bands, and really and I make music to this day, and my love of music continues, and that's what has also led me to delve deeper into this mystery of the Beatles and how it interfaces with Crowley, the magician Crowley, and Egyptian mysticism and all of that stuff that we're going to talk about.
Why don't you explain to the audience exactly what is the Paul is Dead theory?
Okay, well, now, the premise of the Paul is Dead theory is that what happened is, well, it began in the summer of 1969 when rumors of Paul McCartney's death began circulating like wildfire on college campuses all across the United States and Britain. Basically, it was saying Paul was killed in a car crash on the M1 motorway outside of London on September 11th, 1966, and then was secretly replaced by a look-alike double to keep the money rolling in for the band and country, perhaps. Either way, the band apparently felt obliged to leave hints or clues attesting to this fact, in part to appease their guilty conscience. So there are many clues, and like for instance, later in that year of 1966, the Beatles announced, we're going to stop live playing. We're just going to focus in studio work. That's what it all, that's what started it all. Now,
Well, let me interrupt you. Let me interrupt you for a second. Now, there's many clues and all kinds of visual things, and it seems something happened. But now some people think he was just swapped, and some people think he's dead, and this new Paul is a different Paul no matter what. Now, where do you land on that? Swapped or dead?
It's a wild topic. I first got into it when I first became a Beatles fan. My friend Richard and I got into it in, I think it was 6th grade. And we got into all the Beatles things. And then we became aware of this sort of Paul is Dead clues. So we went ahead and did all that business. But, I thought it was, it was a lark or something. But this thing has continued on to this day. And I think that if people fall into a few camps on this, the majority of people think this is just some kind of wild, urban myth, and it's a curiosity, but there's no reality to it. There are other people who stake a lot of claim in the fact that Paul actually died and was replaced by a double. And this is a ongoing conspiracy theory on the internet and otherwise, and people have researched this, have put out books, and have dedicated large parts of their life to prove this fact. They'll go as far as to do voice analysis and all these different things. As for me, I believe that this conspiracy theory is real in the sense that there is actually something going on here in regards to the Paul is Dead myth. But I don't approach it in terms of Paul physically dying and then there's a clone or something that has taken his place. I'm looking at it as a sort of a symbolic thing, and it opens up a whole nother thing. Yes, it's a whole nother aspect. Now, I have to say that, when I do my research on this topic, and I follow some of the research of other people that, try to prove that, hey, look, there's a double out there. Hey, there's a look-alike. There's this, there's that. And oftentimes I listen to that and read that, especially if I'm into it for a few days. It's very convincing if you get into it. But for me, honestly, when I'm looking at either concert footage or interviews of Paul prior to 66 versus Paul afterwards, I can't get it. I find the guy being very charismatic. Let's just say there are two of them. They're both very charismatic. They're both very witty. They have, similar idiosyncrasies on stage. And I can't be convinced of it on that level. But I feel strongly about this other perspective that we will get into. So no, yes, I don't really fall into the camp of I think that there's a physical double out there.
Yeah, it's funny. So you don't think that he doesn't necessarily have to be dead? He just could have been replaced by a different actor.
That's another double. Yeah, that's one of the other views on the Paul is dead theory.
Because, it's interesting. I had May Pang on the show, who was the girlfriend of John Lennon for that Lost Weekend, which went on for a few months. And I asked her about this. I says, what about Paul is dead? What do you think about that? And she goes, oh, no, he's not dead. I met both of them. It kind of slipped out. All right. And, if you listen to it, it really sounds odd. She goes, he's definitely not dead. I met him. So I don't know about that one. Now,
that's a remarkable. I'm going to have to find that.
Yeah.
Because that sounds great. A great interview. And May Pang and John Lennon. That's a whole nother thing they go into. I like their take on UFOs and stuff, but I think that's another discussion altogether.
Yeah, she talks about the UFO quite a bit.
Yeah.
So now, what do you rely on then to come to this conclusion?
Well, different sources. What it is that, to begin with, I think the motivating factor is that the Beatles they are the biggest band in rock history, and and their profound impact on society, and also on a personal level. So, it drives me to get into it more. I think that there are various sources that I'll look into, but let's see here. I think to begin with, it's how do we fathom that a bunch of these, I guess they started out as teenagers, get into this character known as Aleister Crowley, and how does this guy become a dominant feature in this band? And if he is a dominant feature in this band, that means he's an underlying dominant feature in our society as a whole. And I think part of that it led me to want to discover more about the whole matter. And look into Crowley. So, I look into biographies of Crowley and things of that nature, and as part of my research. And to begin with, we find out that Crowley was born. Well, he was born in 1875, so that was a long time ago. And I guess he was born in Leamington Spa, Warwickshire, England, which is just south of Liverpool, really. It's like a 2-hour drive away. So locally speaking, it's like a local sort of thing. And basically what we know is that, Crowley he was an English occultist. He's a ceremonial magician, a poet, a painter. He was a novelist. He was a mountaineer. And then he went on to found, he joined many occult groups, and then he founded his own, the religion of Thelema. And, well, he identified himself as a prophet entrusted with guiding humanity into the Aeon of Horus, which is kind of like the new age that we're all sort of supposedly entering into in the 20th century. You know, so he was a prolific writer. He published widely in his life. Now, Crowley, you know, he's known as sort of this, a self-described anti-Christ, anti-Christian, but surprisingly, he was born into a family of Plymouth Brethren, which is a sect of extreme Christian fundamentalism that was founded in the late 1820s. Now, the Plymouth Brethren believed in the literal truth of the Bible, and, well, they had kind of a dour view of life. They looked at they really focused on the book of Revelations and the end of the world concept. Not only did the apocalyptic-minded Plymouth Brethren anticipate the imminent end of the world with a smug satisfaction, they also considered things like Christmas, let's say, as a pagan holiday. They refused to celebrate it. So it's kind of like, but anyway, Crowley's father was, he was actually quite prominent in this group. And he also wrote and preached quite a bit. And so this family actually, they had quite a bit of money because the grandfather was, he owned a business, Crowley's Ale House. So it's like kind of a chain of bars, eateries all around England. So his father and Crowley, in turn, were very well off, and so they could really just focus on this message. So now, the curious thing is, how did Crowley embed himself in popular culture, as we know? But it's quite obvious because so many like rock bands and even like Hollywood actors openly profess that they're into Crowley, like Led Zeppelin. Jimmy Page has bought Crowley's house and things of that nature, and David Bowie has referred to him. Even Ozzy Osbourne has written actual songs about Crowley. So, but the Rolling Stones have alluded to it. But the Beatles, the surprising thing about the Beatles is that they never really, they had a more squeaky clean image. And so it seemed like this, and then they would have more of a profound impact. There's some kind of paradox going on here that made me curious. And so that's what got me into this a little bit more, yeah.
It's fascinating, too, because if you ever saw the picture of a young McCartney, he looks like a young Crowley. As a matter of fact, they were going to use a picture of the young Crowley on one of the albums, but they didn't because it looked too much like Paul. Okay.
Came across that item,
yeah, and
I was really surprised about that. I guess one of the theories is perhaps, maybe Paul is related to Crowley, but that is sort of like one of the more, like less sort of documented thing that I don't, I have heard that's one of the offshoots of this wild, theory here.
Well, yeah, there's also the whole thing about Barbara Bush, her mother, Pierce, who lived, dated Crowley, was there in his circle. There's letters back and forth with them in Paris. Around the same time, that these kids, these Bush kids were born. And if you look at the pictures of the Bush brothers, it's even the two mysterious ones, Marvin and the other one, you hardly see at all. You didn't see him at the funeral. If the college-age Bush sons, they look a lot like a young Crowley too.
That is curious. Well, you see, this is, this Crowley thing, and I've been looking at it from different angles. I'm not a Crowleyan per se, but from the impact and the extenuating conspiracy theories, it sort of has a very, wide reach, and I've heard about that as well. Yes, you're right. It's definitely a big curiosity there.
Yeah.
And now we know that there is some connection there. My understanding that, I think, one of these one of his Thelemic groups, he had a very libertine sort of approach to life, Crowley, and he engaged in what he would term sex magic. So I'm not sure what the details of that were, but he had a wide social circle, and I believe it was one of the I guess it was one of the folks on Barbara Bush's side, maybe her mother or something, knew him or was in that area. But like you said, there were letters and things exchanged back and forth. I am aware that, they do talk about that.
Yeah, there's no doubt there's a connection. If you want to get into lineage, we can't prove that, and we're at DNA. But, maybe someday we can delve into that. But again, check out those pictures of the college-age Bush sons, the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and check them out, man. It looks a lot like a young Crowley, just as does Paul McCartney. What other?
Is wild.
Isn't it?
Wild.
Isn't it? The guy's just everywhere. Now, what else connections do you have to the Beatles and Crowley? They certainly had a fascination with Crowley, and even Paul too said in an interview too. He believes in magic with a K.
Yeah, it goes right back. Surprisingly, it goes right back to the forming of the band. So, when they're naming the band, the Beatles. How did that come about? Now, John Lennon has two accounts on the matter. He claimed on one occasion that he and Stuart Sutcliffe, the original bass player, came up with the name in a nod to Buddy Holly and the Crickets, and John said in a 1964 interview, it was Beats and Beatles. And when you said it, people thought of Crowley things. And when you read it, it was beat music. Fair enough. Now, on another occasion, John stated, well, it came in a vision. A man appeared on a flaming pie and said unto them, from this day on, you are Beatles with an A. Now, yes, if you're familiar with Aleister Crowley's literature, he does pronounce in his writings that he came up with his own original form of magic. And he differentiated it by spelling it differently than with a C, a K. And he announced, this is magic with a K. So, there's kind of an echoing thing there. Beatles with an A, magic with a K. That is, there's some, that is a curious thing. But, when you dig into it a little more, if that's sort of like the heads up, you look into the Crowley stuff, you see that published in 1910 was a book entitled The Winged Beetle. And this kind of opens up the door here, because in the book it includes themed poems there's some like The Wizard Way, The Octopus, The Two Secrets, and then a poem called The Wings. And researchers have noted that Paul, after the breakup of the Beatles, went on to form the band Wings. So the question is Paul the Winged Beetle, and were the Beatles acolytes of Crowley's system of magic with a K? And that's sort of what opens it up.
Yeah, even the album Help, when they're standing and they're doing those hand motions with their arms out and stuff like that, people have described that as Crowley influenced. What other albums can you tell us that you believe are directly influenced by Crowley?
people talk about, like, when the popular Paul is dead mythology centers around what happens starting with Sgt. Pepper's, because according to the legend, Paul passed away, as I mentioned earlier, in the fall of 1966, and then they scrambled, and then they did what they did to get the replacement, and then everything after that started reflecting that. But when you look at it from this different perspective, a symbolic, ritualistic, magical, if you will, perspective, you see that I found, surprisingly, that this goes way back before that. Maybe, maybe as far as the earliest albums. And so that's really, a lot of clues are put into that. And that's, we can learn a lot about that. I think what we can do is sort of look at it. We could start with their last album. We could look at their last album or the first album, but let's see here. You did mention Help.
Yeah.
So that is, that's a curious one right there, actually. Now, the Beatles, that was in '65, so that's definitely like couple of years at least before any of this business happened. And then on the cover, you see it's the iconic cover, and the Beatles are standing there posed in what they call a semaphore, which is kind of like a emergency signaling for ships and things, military and things of that nature. Apparently, it's supposed to spell out the word help. Now, if you actually decipher it, it doesn't actually spell out help. So it's kind of like, well, what exactly are they doing? Now, I've looked at different things in my research, and some videos, I think there's one site by a creator named I Am a Phony.
Yeah.
And he doesn't say anything, but there are images of the Beatles, that cover, but then it's superimposed by images from one of Crowley's books. Now, this particular book by Crowley is called Liber Ovel Manus Sagittarius Sub Figura 6. Now, in the book, it contains images of hooded figures in tau robes posing in various positions. Each of these positions convey a different meaning, all of which relate to Egyptian mysticism. And suddenly you see that, well, these actually correspond to the images on Help. And surprisingly, I'll give you one example, like Ringo's stance, his arm positions and legs, spells out, as it says in this book, Osiris risen.
Wow.
It's an Egyptian god Osiris, and he's associated with the land of the dead and all that stuff, which we'll get into more, and kind of central to the whole Paul is dead thing. So that was, for me, it was really mind-blowing, because that was like an example. But yeah, it starts way back. And anybody can look that up. You could look it up. You could go to that book by Crowley, superimpose it on the Help thing. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's a coincidence, but that's just the start of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's pretty mind-blowing. This is a good time to take a commercial break, though. Okay, we're with Andrew Arnett. You can find him at andrewarnett.me. That's his website, his WordPress blog spot, where you can find all his many interviews on there, an interview he did on Coast to Coast, a lot of ghost hunting stuff. And a lot of exciting things coming up, too, he wants you to know. So keep an eye on that, andrewarnett.me. You can find him at Twitter at Andrew Arnett. And we'll be right back talking about more Paul is Dead and the Crowley influence on the Beatles right after these messages. And now a word from our sponsors. The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119. If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law.
Before Epstein was the Franklin cover-up. Before that, the Finders. And long before that, the Cleveland Street Scandal. Pedogate Primer is a concise intro and overview of a growing child abuse epidemic worldwide. It features shocking instances of institutionalized and organizational pedophilia throughout history. Churches, cults, the world of arts and entertainment, the government, NGOs, charities, and major corporations are all complicit or culprits in many instances. Pedogate Primer delves into material that for many may seem like the stuff of conspiracy theories. For this reason, the book draws on academic resources, declassified documents, and other reliable sources, and steers clear of conjecture. Such shocking true stories need no embellishment.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. Don't forget to check out our Patreon, the Opperman Report Patreon. We're here today with Andrew Arnett. You can find him at andrewarnett.me, and you can find him on Twitter at Andrew Arnett. And we're talking about the Paul is Dead theory and the influence of Aleister Crowley on the Beatles. Just blew me away with this thing about Sirius rising and the Help album cover there. Mr. Arnett, what else do you have?
Okay, Osiris rising. He is the god of the dead in Egyptian mythology. And really, it's the key to much of Crowley's work. He has books like the Book of Thoth and stuff. It's all based, he penned a lot of, groundbreaking stuff as far as he's concerned in Egypt, and a lot of it relates to that. And if we look at now, going back to the naming of the band, we mentioned a couple of things. Maybe it was based on The Winged Beetle, one of the titles for a book of poems by, Aleister Crowley. Now, if you look at this, the meaning of some of this Egyptian sort of theology, you find that a very prominent god is one called Khepra, which is actually a scarab. And a scarab is really an insect. It's actually the king of insects. In fact, it is a beetle. In the Egyptian mystery schools, when they were like initiating these into their theology in the pyramids, let's say, they would sometimes be referred to as scarabs, as in beetles. In other words, they were the Beatles as they were being initiated. So I just thought that was a curious connection there. You know, Khepra, again, is the beetle-headed god. He is the king of the insect world. How did he get this position? Well, the scarab beetle holds the key to the Paul is dead mystery. Now, this small insect is associated with the Egyptian gods by its curious habit of rolling dung from east to west into a ball, into which it then lays its eggs. When they hatch, the dung provides the young with food. This process of transforming the dead matter of dung into renewed life represents initiation in the Egyptian mysteries. So Paul's death, rather than being a literal thing, can be interpreted as symbolic of this initiation. And the candidate for initiation represents Osiris, who was murdered by his brother Set. Now, Osiris's consort, which is Isis in this theology, then reassembles his body, gives birth to the resurrected god Horus, and then that completes the cycle of death and rebirth. So that's, and then that opens the door. And then with this knowledge, you know, I started looking again at the Beatles clues, the Beatles albums and their songs, and I had a renewed sort of view of it that overlaid the Paul is dead clues and added more. And I guess I'll just reference a few of those at this time. So we're looking at the earlier Beatles albums, and we mentioned Help, which is in '65, and then later that year, within a year, they put out Yesterday and Today, which is an American Capitol release, and that came out Revolve, and this came out before the alleged death of Paul McCartney. Now, the interesting thing about Yesterday and Today is that it actually has two covers, and the one we see now that you can buy in the store, but the first cover was notoriously referred to as the Butcher cover, and they printed like 500,000 copies, but then they recalled it all, and believe it or not, they bought them all back and buried them in the ground. So because they thought it was offensive, but most of Beatles aficionados, as yourself, you're familiar with this image. They're all sitting there in a studio, but they all have like these hacked up body meat parts and doll parts, and they're dressed in butchers' uniforms, and there's blood and guts everywhere. The second one that was put out is more tame. It's like, well-dressed, well-mannered Beatles. They're all sit in pose, except that Paul is in a trunk at the foot. When I looked into this sort of Egyptian mystery of Osiris, I realized that, hey, there's a strange coincidence here. What happens in this cycle, this whole this cycle of this god, let's say, dynamic, is that Osiris is killed, as I mentioned, by his brother Set. What happens is that, Set is jealous or whatever. He's motivated to kill Osiris. So at this party, Set builds this box. It actually is a tomb, and he invites everybody to sit in it, all the other gods. When Osiris sits in this trunk, literally, he slams the door shut, throws the tomb into the river. So understanding that, and I'm looking, well, hey, Paul is dead. That's the symbol. this one of these images for yesterday and today, which came just prior. It came out in June, and he's supposed to have died in September of '66. Came out in June. Here he is in a trunk. Okay, it corresponds in a way with that killing of Osiris by Set. Now, Osiris is floating in a trunk in the river, and he it lands on the bank, and it gets stuck on a tree. This tree sort of grows over it, and then a local king admires it, cuts it down, puts it in as a column in his palace. Isis, which is the Osiris's wife, is mourning. She's looking for it. She realizes that Osiris is in there. She takes him out and hides him. But Set discovers this, and then so he takes him. He finds Osiris a second time, and this time he hacks him up into a million pieces. And Isis is sort of looking for his body parts everywhere until they finally put him together, and then they create. They merge once again and create Horus, which is the new god. But anyway, two death images portrayed in one album. So, I thought, hey, this is interesting.
The thing is, too, it's important. You don't actually have to kill Paul, You can just go through these rituals, these in order to still tap into that black magic, you know what I mean? Just doing the rituals and imitating it. Like even putting out that album with the dead babies on, just putting it out for a day or two, and calling it back, it still works, for what they're trying to do, that energy they're trying to create.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I think that's the big mystery. Like, what is the big overall thing going on? And that opens up, many other doors. Like, but you have to understand that whatever they're doing is it would have a profound effect on all of society because everybody's into them. Everybody. They're so deeply influenced, and they're like role models, really. Yeah. They're idols.
So, what other albums did you find some stuff?
Okay. As I'm looking into this, I'm learning more about this whole Egyptian theology, and it's fascinating. I think that the thing that the realization for me, I start to understand it when I understood that the fact that the gods actually represent cardinal points, let's say on an astrological map or the seasons. So, for instance, the equinoxes and the solstices would indicate cardinal points on a yearly calendar or even on a day. So what I came to understand is that Osiris would represent sort of the winter solstice, and Set would represent the autumnal equinox, and thus the term Set is set, as in the sun is setting. And then also Horus would represent the rising, as we mentioned earlier, Osiris is and Isis form again, and then they create Horus. Horus would represent the vernal equinox, spring, and the returning of the light, you see. And then for them, their greatest god is Ra, which is also accompanied by Kepra, which is this beetle symbol, and he's at the summer solstice, so he's at the top. So this whole thing seems to be playing out like this. It's a circular ritual, and it could be played out, on all levels, not just sort of a annual thing, but it could be playing out analogously in let's say in their immediate case, like the music industry. It's hard to. They are really the biggest band ever. But if you view it from this angle, one of the most popular Paul is Dead albums, which are supposed to convey a lot of Paul is Dead imagery, is their last album, which is Abbey Road. Well, that's the last one they recorded. And then they cite that, okay, here are these 4 Beatles. They're walking across the street in front of Abbey Road Studios. And the popular interpretation is that, well, John, he's in the front. He's wearing a white suit. He is like the priest. He's presiding over this funeral procession. The second guy is Ringo Starr. He's dressed all in black, so he's the Undertaker. Paul, well, he's barefoot. He's out of step. He's in an out-of-date jacket. That signifies, the dead. He's out of step with the real world. He's also carrying a cigarette, so-called death cancer stick, in his right hand, and then we know that he's a left-handed person. So they say, oh, well, that's not really Paul. And then the last guy is George Harrison in denim, and he's supposed to be the gravedigger. But if you look at it from, more of a ritualistic, symbolic level, as I just mentioned regarding the cycles of the Egyptian gods as being one concept of the sun moving through the cycle, then you see at the top is, let's just say it's John Lennon. He's the leader of the band. He represents Ra at the summer solstice. He's all in white. He has, beard, full head of hair. He's like a mane, like a lion's mane, like Leo. The next guy is Ringo. He's all in black. He is dressed in black, and so he's the Undertaker, but he represents Set, because this is the setting of the sun. Now, Paul would be Osiris then. He'd be the dead guy. He'd be the sun that is at the very bottom at the winter solstice. And then George, in his denim, would represent Horus, because that's the return, that's the spring, and he's dressed in denim. He's like a farmer. This is when the farmers, they put their seeds in, they get to work, all that. So that's just an example of that.
Well, it's interesting, too, because Paul is barefoot, and then they ask him about that, and he says, well, it was a hot day, so I kicked my shoes off. Who's going to walk on a hot concrete in your bare feet? Makes no sense. You know what I mean? What do you make of him being barefoot?
Well, like I said, as I mentioned, people have interpreted that as being, well, dead people, they remove their shoes and then they take them out in a coffin, or it's symbolic of, him being out of step. He's also out of step because they're all sort of like, they have like their left foot forward. So yeah, it's another example of this. It's curious. But to be honest with you, when I started this research, what really blew my mind is what happens in Sgt. Pepper's. I'm not sure how much time we have left, but if I could touch upon a couple of things there, wow. Man.
We got exactly 10 minutes, like 9 minutes.
Okay. I want to get into Sgt. Pepper's because it shows it's basically literally and figuratively the smoking gun in the Paul is Dead sort of phenomenon. You can interpret it as you wish, like if he's dead, he's replaced, or, if it's symbolic, but there's something definitely going on here. The thing is, of course, traditionally filled with Paul is Dead clues. The imagery on the front and all that stuff, just to touch upon it, they're presiding over a funeral. There are all those faces in the back. They're looking over this funeral. There's a bed of flowers on the earth. It's in the shape of a bass guitar, which is it's a bass. There's like 3 strings on it. It's a left-handed bass, so it indicates Paul. They're mourning. This is it's a funeral. Something's going on here. Other things that people point out, on the bass drum, it says Lonely Hearts, but if you place a mirror over that drum logo, it appears to be the numbers in Roman numerals to spell out 119, and then the words he and an arrow up to Paul die. So it's like 119. So that's, either November 9th, but in Britain the month comes first. So that would be 11. That's September 11th. He died. As far as so there are these things. But here's the thing that nobody ever talks about. Now, there is an image that stands behind George Harrison. You just basically catch a portion of his face, but he has been identified as it's an image from it's an actor. His name is Timothy Carey, and it comes from it's a still taken from the movie The Killer, which is a Stanley Kubrick film. Now, in my research. Let's see here. So Timothy Carey, he's an American film television actor. The film was made in 1956 called The Killing. What happens in this picture, actually, in the real picture, Carey is carrying a gun, and he's aiming it. In the film, he's actually shooting a horse. You see, it's part of this heist thing, and they're trying to, pull a heist on this racing track.
Right.
That's the story. But in this image, so he's got this gun. He's hiding behind George, and the barrel of the gun is pointed directly at Paul McCartney's heart. If you remove that's what happens when you remove the people. And you can see these stills. This just came out recently in the last couple of years when they showed production footage of the studio, the session for the filming of the cover. And so, Paul is standing in front of the barrel, and George is obscuring the character, and so that's the first thing. And the other thing that really was interesting, and it just points out like Crowley and the significance of Crowley. People say, well, he's on the cover of Sgt. Pepper's, and he's one of like 50 people. But if you fold the album over, like if you hold it diagonally and then you fold it in half, suddenly Crowley's at the very top. And at the very bottom is it forms this sort of A. It's kind of like his signature. Aleister Crowley would sign his signature like Aleister with this sort of A. It had a phallic sort of shape to it. Well, there's that shape at the bottom of the album. Crowley's at the top. Crowley's signature is at the bottom, and then the palm trees on the side sort of represent, you can interpret it as, well, there are two palm trees at this point when you fold it over. It's like, palm trees, these two pillars. It's very Masonic. It's like, it's the whole Boaz, Jacquin sort of twin pillar thing.
Yeah, real quick. If you Google Sgt. Pepper album folded, you'll see it. It comes up, and there's even like a penis here right in the center and the bottom.
That's what I mean. Yeah, that's his signature. Crowley's signature as an A. It's like that. Yeah.
Can't miss it.
Yeah. So, that's that's some of the mysteries. I think that this is an ongoing thing, and where is it leading? That's a whole nother discussion. But there's something going on there for sure.
Yeah, and around this time, there was a lot of this folding stuff going on. Mad Magazine did it every weekend, and what do you call it? There was a lot to it, the backwards. Paul was friends with William Burroughs, who was talking about recording things backwards and writing things backwards. Crowley was into writing things backwards and recording things backwards. So this is all a huge pattern here. We got to have you come back, man, and get into this some more, okay? And we're with Andrew Arnett. Check him out at andrewarnett.me, and you can find him on Twitter at Andrew Arnett. Andrew, in 1 minute, what do you want to leave us with?
Just keep listening and keep searching and keep reading and stay healthy.
Okay, man. We kind of put you on the spot there, but thank you so much, Andrew Arnett, andrewarnett.me. Check it out. Thank you.
Thanks again. Bye-bye, Ed.
Good night. And now a word from our sponsors. If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law. Thank you so much for listening to the Opperman Report. I want to welcome all our new listeners at WWPR 1490 AM in the Tampa Bay area. We're brand new down here. We're getting a nice warm welcome. We have great advertising opportunities for local sponsors, local businesses, but also international websites and international companies too, on our other stations in California, Nevada, Utah, and on the internet worldwide. But down here in Tampa Bay, Florida, we have some great opportunities for you to come in and get very, very affordable advertising rates. Get a hold of me at oppermanreport@gmail.com and we'll cut you a good deal. Silk City Hot Sauce. A small batch hot sauce prepared with farm-grown peppers. Rich and vibrant taste, no artificial ingredients, 100% pure goodness. 8 flavors from mild to wild. The sweet and spicy Mango Madness, the green jalapeno sauce called Aztec Attack. The Dragon features fire-roasted peppers and pure Vermont maple syrup. Killer hot sauces for the true hot sauce fanatic, a blend of ghost peppers, habanero peppers, honey, and garlic, and more. You gotta see the bottles too. Each flavor has original comic book artwork. You gotta see them. Go to silkcityhotsauce.com. silkcityhotsauce.com. Enter promo code ED, ED, to save 15%, and you'll also receive a free bottle of hot sauce. The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119. Hey guys, if you like the show and you want to show your support, check out the Opperman Report Patreon. You can go there. We have for a $3 tier. You can go and you can hear all the shows that we produce for you Monday to Friday all over AM/FM radio around the country. You can hear those shows without the ads. We cut out all the advertising so you can listen to them ad-free. There's a $5 section where we take all the old shows from the members section and we upload them over there. Then we have a $10 section with 8 hours of brand new exclusive content each month. But there's also a ton of free content. I put up free content on Patreon all the time. I have those exclusive pictures of Jeffrey Epstein with the little girl in his lap. I got all kinds of court documents and stuff we put up all the time. Announcements, pictures, videos, all kinds of free content at the Opperman Report Patreon. So be sure to make that a one day. Hey guys, if you like the show and you want to show your support, check out the Opperman Report Patreon. You can go there and become a member for $3 a month. We have all the shows that you hear Monday through Friday on AM/FM radio. We have all those shows, but we cut out the ads, so you can hear that content ad-free. There's a $5 section where we put up all the old member section shows are going up over there. And then there's a $10 section where we have brand new content. 8 hours of exclusive content per month goes up there in the $10 section. But listen, I put up a lot of free stuff too. We put up documents, court documents, photographs, announcements. So you should make the Opperman Report Patreon a stop. You should stop there once a day and check out what's going on over there. That's Opperman Report Patreon.